1 year ago today, something happened that would bring a smile to the remnant faithful. Pachamama took an unexpected swim in the Tiber River. She swam with the fishes, as the saying goes, and today I want to celebrate the anniversary so that we can look back on that event and remember that we must be hopeful, that we must remember that Christ will inspire some to act, and that the laity can do something to stand against the idolatry we see in Rome. Let's have a look at these events from a year ago and see how they are connected to what is happening today in Rome. Because while this happened 1 year ago today, those events are still extremely relevant. Our story begins at the Amazon Synod, more precisely in the day before the opening of the Synod. On October 4th, 2019, the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, the world witnessed the enthronement of a pagan idol in the Vatican gardens in Rome, overseen by Pope Francis and several cardinals. The ceremony would later be described as an enthronement by pagan commentators, and since that time we have been assured by the followers of Pachamama, I've seen this in my own comments, that we don't know what is coming, that we have no idea how far they have triumphed. Fair enough, I guess. The faithful, those who held to the Catholic faith, those who understood the first commandment, well, they were aghast. The faith of many was hammered by the events of that day. It would get worse, as days later, Pachamama would be processed in a solemn ceremony into St. Peter's Basilica, and would be placed on the spot on the cathedral floor above where St. Peter's bones lie, in a further slight to the faithful. What proceeded thereafter was the Amazon Synod, which was just Laudato Si' II, as I called it in those days. But the issue at hand is this. Is Pachamama a demon? The answer is yes. It is not a Catholic symbol. It is a demon, full stop. And before I get into why Alexander Schugel dumped the idol into the river, we'll go over why this is important now. And for that reason, why let's rely on a testimony of a missionary to South America who describes his encounter with the demon and its follower in the following testimony. Quote, "We traveled to a hill outside of Huancayo. On the hill sits Cruz de la Paz, which means the Cross of Peace. This is a large cross that overlooks the city of Huancayo. It is a place of pilgrimage for faithful, but also a gathering place for idolaters. An altar of cement sits beneath the cross. Inscriptions and graffiti had been placed on the cross, which identified it as an altar to Pachamama and other demons. Locals know this is a Catholic place, but it is also a place where sacrifices are made to demons, especially to Pachamama and her child/husband, Inti. Surrounding the altar and cross were many stone altars erected by hand. Fires had burned around and near these smaller altars. You could see multiple satanic and stonecutter symbols in the area. Directly behind the large cross to the right, situated below the hill, is a small town called Coipa Alta. Fires were burning in the town, and smoke could be seen rising from the town. We asked the locals among us what was happening. They said the city was celebrating El Dia de Santiago. They said it is a festival that appears to be Catholic but is anything but. They describe a scene in which Catholic celebrations were mixed with Incan rituals. They described a week of citywide depravity and celebrations in and outside the church. This festival is an amalgamation of Catholic and pagan rituals. The rituals celebrate the fertility goddess Pachamama." End quote. Briefly, I'm going to interject here that the missionary describes depravity that violates the 6th and 9th commandments in the most grotesque style imaginable. I'll spare you that. Think ancient Rome if you need a little hint. Even though he describes it in a non-scandalous manner, I'm just going to overlook it here. But he describes how nature will then take its course, and 9 months from then, children will be born outside the normal Christian bonds of the nuptial sacrament. Continuing, quote, "We pressed for more details, and the local said the Catholic Church, does nothing. They say nothing. It is allowed, and it even happens within the walls of the church. We were shocked to hear this, but all indications and observations gave reason to believe this was true." End quote. There you have it, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. For more information, see my video, The Truth About Pachamama. If this doesn't sound like Catholic behavior, well, it shouldn't. If you think this sounds like Catholic behavior, you might want to get your moral compass checked out, and By that, I don't mean citing the heterodox blogging world of blogs like I Can't Find Peter, or America Magazine, or others who say that this is perfectly fine because it isn't, and this is what Rome signed on to. Maybe without doing their due diligence first. Let's never actually, think of malice before we think of just laziness. But at the core of this problem is something called syncretism, the concept of fusing Catholicism with other things. It's wicked and should be opposed at all costs. And someone did. By now, we all know the name of Alexander Schugel, the young Austrian giant of a man, who with another anonymous man went into the church building the idols were housed in, took them and dropped them to the Tiber River under the watchful eye of the statue of St. Michael the Archangel, which is clearly the appropriate response. The Vatican's response was swift, denouncing the action and using the kind of language to do so that seems almost funny now, echoing the sentiments of the world rather than Catholic common sense. Not all the bishops went along with this. One from Brazil that most of us never heard about responded in this way, quote, Bishop José Luís Azcona Hermoso, emeritus bishop of the Brazilian city of Marajo, condemned the pagan rituals with the Pachamama statues as a quote-unquote demonic sacrilege. He declared in a homily on October 20th that Mother Earth should not be worshipped because everything, even the earth, is under the dominion of Jesus Christ. It is not possible that there are spirits with equal power or superior to our Lord or of the Virgin Mary. And he added that Pachamama is not and never will be the Virgin Mary. To say that this statue represents the Virgin is a lie. She is not Our Lady of the Amazon because the only Lady of the Amazon is Mary of Nazareth. Let's not create syncretistic mixtures. All of this is impossible. The Mother of God is the Queen of Heaven and Earth. End quote. The maniacs told us that Pachamama was Our Lady of the Amazon, presented in a depiction that even the lukewarm should bristle at, for it is a clear attempt to undermine her purity and modesty. But people still will not believe the bishop. They choose to believe that it is a Catholic symbol when it is in fact a symbol associated with the demonic. On October 27th, the auxiliary bishop of Kazakhstan linked Pachamama worship to the Human Fraternity statement released by the Vatican and other leaders in the months prior, which is especially relevant now given the statements in Fratelli Tutti and its obvious inspiration from that earlier document. Quoting him from 1 year ago on how the document endorses the idea that God permits theological error, like he does with biodiversity, quote, this found its practical realization in the Vatican ceremonies of the veneration of wooden statues, which represent pagan divinities or indigenous cultural symbols of fertility. It was the logical, practical consequence of the Abu Dhabi statement. And the Kazakh prelate calls for prayer and reparation. It would be good for all true Catholics, first and foremost bishops, and then also priests and lay faithful, to form a worldwide chain of prayers and acts of reparation for the abomination of the veneration of wooden idols perpetrated in Rome during the Amazon Synod. Faced with such an evident scandal, it is impossible that a Catholic bishop would remain silent, and it would be unworthy of a successor of the apostles. The first in the Church who should condemn such acts and do reparation is Pope Francis. The honest and Christian reaction is to the dance around the Pachamama. The new golden calf in the Vatican should consist in a dignified protest, a correction of this error, and above all, in acts of reparation. End quote. Acts of reparation are called for, acts of protest, not acceptance, not obedience. So on October 21st, a week prior to the bishop from Kazakhstan statement, Alexander Schugel, having a functioning sense of the faith, accepted aid to toss the idols into the river. For this he was celebrated in our circles, and rightfully so, and has since gone on to found his St. Boniface Institute, a Catholic lay organization that might actually serve some use. St. Boniface is one of many saints of the Church who did not sit idly by and watch the veneration of the demonic with quiet serenity. He did something. He chopped the tree down. Other great saint, St. Vladimir, did something similar in the wilds of Russia. That is the Catholic response. That is the masculine response. It is the response of men. Not to accept and say, oh, it's totally a Catholic symbol, and to blaspheme Our Lady by saying it's Our Lady of the Amazon. In the aftermath of Alexander's actions, the Vatican said the local authorities fished the idols out of the river, though some observers say the ones they displayed after were clearly smaller. I don't know if it's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me either way. Eventually, the Amazon Synod went on and displayed its true purpose, to align the Church with the Novus Ordo Seclorum and the Stonecutter movement. After a while, the Vatican grew quiet about it in the face of the affliction and other issues. As a friend of mine pointed out to me just yesterday, in hindsight, Fratelli Tutti makes it obvious that they were getting ready to double down on Pachamama, and have done so by making the new image of the idol in the form of those coins issued recently by the Vatican, and enthroning the spirit of Pachamama in a papal encyclical that itself says we do not need to follow it, yet some are treating it as if it was public revelation. That is the situation today, and in that spirit, let's contemplate Pachamama swimming with the fishes, as we ponder how the faithful should respond to the enshrining of this idol in its spirit in a formal document of the institutional church. It should be obvious that you should pray for the church, so I repeat my request here. Pray for the church. And thanks, as always, for listening and for your support of this channel. It is appreciated. The sources for this story and related articles are, as always, linked in the show notes over at returntotradition.org. Again, in today's show notes. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.